Hey, everybody, welcome to episode 39 or class 39 Constitution class. Today we are going to be focusing on, in honor of 9/11, we're going to be focusing on the Patriot Act and how the Patriot Act has negatively impacted the Constitution and Bill of Rights. So um, it's about 2:35 my time. So if you want to bump ahead about 25 minutes, that's when class is going to start. I'm just going to sit here and wait for people to jump in. So see who's here. I've got a few eyeballs. Tells me that there's 3 people in the chat, or there's 3 people in the room. Hello, Monica. How are you? Mm. Where are you, Monica? Did you tell me if you've told me in the past? Forgive me, I've forgotten. As soon as you tell me, I'll probably remember. Pennsylvania. That's Harrisburg, right? See, I told you I'd remember. Just needed a little bit of a kick in the butt. Uh, how's the weather back in Harrisburg today? Oh, I'm tired. Woke up this morning at like 2, and I could not go back to sleep. And anyway, I just got up and ultimately hit the gym at 5, and then I've been going ever since. I feel like I need a nap. Yeah, I the you know the I when I'm outnumbered like that, I just I'm not even going to try to fight it. But the people who, in my opinion, who subscribe to the notion that it was holographic technology, eh, it's like they're really trying to force feed it. It you know those were those were real planes. Um, my understanding was um, you were going to say something. Yeah, I get it. It's okay. I'm not shy, and I quit. I quit. I'm like, I just don't even want to fight this fight. That's one of the reasons why I took I kind of took a little bit of a poll, and I asked what the um, what people thought, and everybody was like, "Yeah, we agree with that." I'm like, "Oh man, all right." That tells me where I am in this, and clearly, I'm not going to have any influence in trying to change anybody's mind, so I just shut up. Wow, I believe that. I believe that. And that dust was just, it was full of all kinds of toxicities. Excuse me. Sup, Darren? Stash? Mustache? Oh, I think I have a little bit of one, and I always maintain a little bit of a goatee, but um, yeah. So you see it, the light. Yo,
What's happening?
oh, nothing. I am. I woke up this morning at like 2. Couldn't go back to sleep. Went to the gym, and I just been going ever since. And I'm kind of dying. Not dying, but I'm just tired. There's my girl, Amy Fierce Warrior Thompson.
Hello, Amy. Trying to get myself centered.
So I guess nobody ever responded, and I didn't know that we were doing this until I saw Doug's email
Oh, I didn't see the email. What did he say?
talking about the Constitution or talking about the Patriot Act and impact on liberties.
Yep. Did he say he wants to?
That's what he sent out in his email thread.
I didn't read the email.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's what I'm saying, because I typically
You'd prepare for it.
well, I use that as the guide to what I'm going to say in terms of the thumbnail and whatnot.
Well, I haven't seen the thumbnail yet either.
Yeah, and you won't. It's on the.
I'm coming right now. Patriot Act and how it influenced our liberties. Who else we got here today now that I'm in the Yahoo chat? Mr. Darren is here. Did you catch any of the harmonica? Did you catch any of the Durham release today?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, what did he do? Did he file anything?
Yeah, so there was a filing, or is unsealed, the filing. And so it turns out that Danchenko was an FBI confidential human source from 2017 up until October of 2020. This is after they already knew that he'd lied to them. And the reasoning that he more than likely did it is so the FBI wouldn't have to, you know how they always claim confidential human sources, so they don't have to release information or redact stuff. Mm-hmm. That's exactly it. That's exactly what happened. Pretty juicy nugget. Technofog did a good piece on it in Substack.
Technofog is brilliant.
Oh yeah. Now, there's about a group of about 8 to 10 people in that corner of the Twitter that I've been following for a long time. Hey, Raging Smirk. Which reminds me, I got to get a text out.
Hello, Tracy.
Yeah, I did not have any time to prep anything on the Patriot Act, so I'll take third wheel on this one today.
And I really didn't either. I mean, it's just more of this is more philosophical and you know, I mean, it's all pretty evident what it did. Actually, let me do a quick search. Let me do it in something that's not Google.
What are you looking for?
I typed in Patriot Act destruction of liberty. Of course, I get all the good stuff. Oh, it's talking about the Department of Justice and all that stuff. Yeah.
Annie Kurtz says, I remember one guy speaking out against the Patriot Act, the constitutional lawyer on Nightline with that you-know-who. I never really watched Nightline, so I don't know who you're talking about, but I bet I probably saw him because I was a little bit feisty about the Patriot Act when it was going in. I got a little upset with George Bush on September the 12th when he made his speech addressing the world. And at the time, I thought it was an opportunity, to unite the world against terrorism. And he did just the opposite. He made an us against them speech, which I thought was really the wrong tenor. And it was pretty obvious he was pounding the war drums, which I thought was a terrible idea. Tracy, pour one for me too, would you? I can't have one for myself.
So here, let's as a primer. What's even in the Patriot Act? Title I, enhancing domestic security against terrorism. This provision dramatically expands the powers of the president, the military, and the intelligence community whenever the specter of terrorism is invoked. Bizarrely, it contains a provision condemning discrimination against Arabs, Muslims, and South Asians, which seems to have very little to do with protecting Americans from terrorism. Title II, enhanced surveillance procedures. Title II contains the meat of the act with regard to massive industrial-scale surveillance on the American public. Beyond the simple spying on Americans and their communications, Title II increases the ability of federal intelligence agencies to share your private communications with one another. Title III, International Money Laundering Abatement and Financial Anti-Terrorism Act, not simply a section of the USA Patriot Act. Title III is an act of Congress in its own right. You might have noticed how much more difficult it is to open a bank account or send a wire transfer after 9/11. You can blame this provision, which shredded banking privacy rights in the United States. Title IV, protecting the border, other than expanding the number of federal employees, of course. The provision of the Patriot Act charged with protecting America's borders does little other than point towards past for future action and study. It is worth noting that the weakest provision of the Act is the only one explicitly authorized by the Constitution, protecting the border. Title V, removing obstacles to investigating terrorism. Title V authorizes bounties for the apprehension of alleged terrorists, broadens government power to conduct DNA analysis, allows for greater data sharing between law enforcement agencies, and perhaps most disturbingly, requires private telecommunication carriers to comply with government requests for electronic communication records whenever requested by the FBI. It also expands the power of the Secret Service to investigate computer fraud. Title VI, providing for victims of terrorism, public safety officers, and their families, perhaps the most innocuous portion of the Patriot Act. Title VI provides for a victims fund for families fund for victims of terrorism and their families. Title
I like
VII,
the part where he said the one part that was actually empowered by the Constitution is the one that had the weakest provisions. That's just so telling. And I just read an article. Yesterday about basically all the terrorists that have already gotten into America through Biden's open border. And then they were also talked about all the Afghanis that never got vetted. They didn't even try. I mean, if we start seeing major terror acts in America, I mean, someone's got to be held accountable for this.
The Libertarian Institute. I'd never even heard of this thing.
Oh, used to be one of my go-tos when I was part of the Libertarian Party. You know who spoke out the strongest about the Patriot Act was Ron Paul from day one. He opposed it with everything he had, and he was right about every bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Ron Paul had a tendency to be right about many things. All right, what do you think for the Doug bets today? I'm going to go with a 3:00 sharp.
Okay, I'm going to do 259 today.
Bets in, people. Ron likes to steal all the good time slots. And don't forget to hit the like button, everyone. Oh, hey, Ron, someone made a comment. Wanted me to ask you the question. You know how your name in the chat here comes up as Mr. Constitution Classes?
Mm-hmm.
They were saying that one of those times when we had the troll, that they were thinking that you were Doug, and your comments he was getting them conflated with Doug's comments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So wondering, are you able to change your name away from that, or is
No.
it because that's the name of that's because it's
No,
the name of the channel?
because I'm the one that I am hosting, like the channel that it's on, Mr. Constitution Class is, I am the admin on that. So,
But are you unable to, like with a different
no,
browser, to log in? Log in as you?
Oh, I suppose I could. Yeah, I'm on another browser. I am.
Just a suggestion. I don't think it's a life or death issue. Hello, Michelle.
259's taken, Michelle. I'll share it with you, though. We can have bragging rights together.
Yeah, you got to put it in the chat, Ron. Now you got to come up with a new one because she beat you to it. Can't.
No. Everybody heard me say 259. She just wasn't here at the time. So it's all good.
So, Raging Smirk, you want to talk about Sarbox Act? That one impacted me professionally quite a bit. A lot more paperwork. Sarbanes-Oxley. What was the Dodd-Frank? That was the other act that came out right around that time. Barney Frank and Christopher Dodd.
Barney Frank.
That guy was one of the all-time worst. I would put him in my bottom 10 politicians of modern times. Barney Frank would definitely be on that list.
I don't know, man. Somebody told me, I was talking to somebody yesterday. They said that they had done some digging, and one of the original creators of the Federal Reserve Act was Schiff. What guy named Schiff?
Jacob
Schiff.
Yeah, he was part of it.
And they were saying that Adam Schiff, the congressman out of California, is like a nephew or something of his.
Yeah, I've never been able to get that verified because I looked it up a long time ago. Because Jacob Schiff is also famous for being the guy who sent about $1 million with not Trotsky. Who was the other one of the one that Wilson shipped over to Russia to help the Bolsheviks? It was maybe it was Trotsky. Anyways, yeah, that was Jacob Schiff was also a big part of financing the Bolsheviks. If you do a search, you'll see it pop up. If you start typing in "was Jacob Schiff," the next thing will pop up will be related to Adam Schiff, and it is unconfirmed. The experts say no, but are they lying? I don't know. I think I would be more well known if it were the case, if that had been documented. Don't you?
Yeah, maybe, or maybe not.
Yeah, Raging Smirk. Everything about running a nonprofit is a nightmare. Sometimes it's a paper. I mean, I was working with some people getting ready to form a new entity over the summer, and the choice between going nonprofit or for-profit, or 501c3 versus 501c4, really just came down to if you go nonprofit 501c3, you're just basically begging for hours and hours of paperwork and headaches.
259, right on the money.
Well, actually, I've been here about 40 seconds and watched you looking down the whole time.
Whatever.
Not noticing me.
That was intentional because Ron picked 259.
Okay, so if you were here for 40 seconds, it just turned to 3 o'clock, so I still was 259.
Yeah, that was 21 seconds ago, though. I'm gonna.
Yeah, my clock had just turned 2:59 like moments before I plugged in.
All right, so 2:59. So Michelle and I win.
I'm gonna declare Tracy the winner.
No, you can't.
Flag on the field.
See, if I was Biden, my response would be, well, no, you're all losers. But I wouldn't do that.
How you doing, Mr. Gibbs?
I am doing well. Make sure my phone is turned off here so I'm not like some people. So it's good to be here.
So what's going on there, Mr. Gibbs? You like my idea of doing something in honor of the Patriot Act?
Yeah, that's fine.
So
Patriot Act. We'll
the
get into it,
Unpatriot Act?
the Patriot Act really didn't create anything. It didn't exist. Just put it all into one document. In other words, they already had passed and had in place all that they were doing. It was just far flung, and they didn't have it one document so that you weren't so that you were nervous. Now that said, my joke has always been, and it's not a joke, it's true, but most people laugh anyway, is that we already had the Patriot Act. It was called the Second Amendment.
Right. Well, there's that, and then it's just the Constitution in general. The Constitution protects us from all this stuff. They just don't want to use the tools. They just want to get around it. And really, the Patriot Act essentially is just it's a communist manifesto overlaid onto the onto the government so that they can do the things that they want to do.
Ron, does the Constitution protect us?
No.
Thank you. I'm nitpicking on semantics, but it's an important one.
No, the Constitution doesn't protect us.
It enumerates our rights, and it tells the government what it may not do. We protect ourselves.
Correct.
Well, it may not do or may do, depending on what part you're talking about. But yeah, here's a piece of paper.
Tracy, whose shirt are you complimenting?
I'm sure she's talking about Doug's.
I thought I was looking a little spiffy today. I was hoping to get a compliment. I'm going to fish for one.
I have red, white, and blue too. But mine has the Gadsden Navy flag.
This shirt was a gift from a couple of people that regularly attend my Temecula Murrieta class and are on my board for my nonprofit. I noticed you guys were talking about nonprofits when I came in and was being ignored by someone who was looking downward. And I have to admit that when it comes to running a nonprofit, if I didn't have a treasurer to handle all the paperwork and tax returns and all the jazz that you have to do, I wouldn't want to do it. I have the luxury of being president and handing off all of the paperwork for that drives you nuts, with the tax returns and all that, to George. He worries about all that.
Going to be good to see George on Saturday. Mm-hmm. Starts at 5, right?
He is going to bring his and be wearing his Navy Revolutionary War uniform.
Excellent. Starts at 5 o'clock, right, Doug?
Starts at 5 o'clock officially. I am going to open the doors, obviously, to everybody about 4:30. I plan to be there about 4.
Now that said, I told the lady hamster we'd get there early to help you set up.
Yeah, that said, the opening, while I will introduce and do opening words at 5, I'm not really going to get things slinging full throttle until about 5:15 to give, the people who are fashionably late their 15-minute opportunity.
Ron, are you going to make the trip?
No, I'll be in Texas.
What's Texas this weekend?
I'm going out to Nino's place.
Okay, cool.
Tejas, as my wife would say.
I have to go out there. I have to go out and help him do a couple things, and so I'm gonna take advantage of the. Anyway, I'm just gonna go hang out and stay at Nino's house.
Wow, that kind of. Are you flying?
I'm driving.
So you don't have to deal with TSA. So I was going to hope to segue that into the Patriot Act.
So, well, let's get started.
Sounds good to me. I was trying to segue. If you were flying, I would have done that. Your topic, Ron, why don't you lead us off? What is your
Well,
hypothesis?
I don't have a hypothesis. I mean, it's pretty evident that
Well,
the
before we get into hypotheses, why don't we do some groundwork, some background, some
okay,
stuff
that's
like that first? Not everybody that's watching or listening was alive or remembers 9/11. I realize it was 21 years ago. So anyone who had was their 21st birthday a couple days ago or earlier wasn't even born yet. I know it's hard to imagine.
and anybody who is really under 5 years old, so or wouldn't even know. They wouldn't really have any recollection.
Now, I did want to, if you don't mind, I would like to speak about three particular things regarding what happened.
Hey, Doug,
Understand? I'm sorry.
let
Go
me
ahead.
just before you do that, I wanted to share that when Ron called me yesterday with this idea, I told him I was a little bit mixed, and I gave him a couple reasons. I go, oh, well, we just want to make this is a tough topic for us to touch on YouTube without getting a strike. So I just wanted to caution you to remember that we are on YouTube before we start talking about 9/11 and such. I know you're pretty good about not getting strikes, but
Only when I talk about certain things that happened 2 years ago.
erections.
Yeah, pretty sad that you can say that word and there's no problem. But anyway, they're talking about transitioning. That's fine. Jeez. But for those of you who joined adulthood recently or younger than adults right now, it's not a memory to you. It was either something that happened before you were born or while you were just a little kid. It's pictures in a history book, a tragic day in the history of the United States, but nothing more. For a lot of other folks, it's who are not as informed about the political ramifications of things in the world as some of us are. It was a tragedy. It was a horrifying attack, and it was perpetrated by one particular group, and that was it, and that's the story, and that's the way you like it. And in the beginning, I looked at it more in that way. As I have evolved, there are certain things I don't accept. There are certain things I do accept. It's kind of funny because Warhamster, I think I'm a lot like you in the sense that when I look at something, first of all, I want to see the evidence of certain things. And then typically, one of the problems with our world is you either believe something is completely this or not at all that. There never seems to be any variations in between in our discussions. As for what happened 2 years ago, either you completely believe that it was completely or you believe that those people are complete conspiracy theorists and that it didn't happen at all. There is no in between. And so 9/11, the day that the towers fell, is one of those situations. And for a lot of people, either it was a terrible attack by terrorists and only terrorists, and we need to respond to terrorism and Islamism the way we did, and that was it, because we needed to, as Bush said, exact punishment for evil.
How many of those people had Iraqi passports?
None.
Thank you.
Or it's the exact opposite for some people, and it was completely an inside job and completely, the fault of the and then fill in the blank, deep state or globalist or leftist or progressive left or the entire government or the Bush administration or whatever you want to put into that blank. And turns out I also exist in my belief system somewhere in between. Now, on that day, I want to do two things. I want to give you my memory of that day. I want to give you my experience at Ground Zero. And then I want to, because what the show is really going to become about is the third thing I'm going to talk about, which is my feelings about some of what was behind it and what was a part of the game that was being played. So my memory on that day, I live in California, and at the time I was in construction. And that particular day, our work truck that we normally drove to our job site, that was the company's truck. Normally what we would do is go to a particular parking lot, leave our vehicles there, get in the work truck, take the work truck. I would drive that work truck because I was running crews, unless I had to drive the big rig. Then I would drive the big rig, and I would choose somebody from my crew to drive the pickup. The big rig, this is a job that we had already started the day before, so the big rig was, and all the equipment was already on the job site. It was going to be a few days while we were going to be there working on. We were digging some very complicated models. Normally, I could dig 6 to 12 foundations. This is the footings for the foundation is what I did. I operated heavy machinery to dig those. Normally I could dig 6 to 12 of those a day, but when the houses were real complicated, sometimes it could take all day just to dig one, and that was the kind of houses these were. And these were very expensive, larger, and because we were digging the models, it was just a big dirt area, and we were the only ones on the job site. There was no porta potties there yet. There were no other construction people there yet. It was just us. And our work truck had been in a crash because one of the idiots that was driving it a few days before had rear-ended a vehicle trying to catch up to the rig because he had fallen behind. And so we had a rental, and the rental had a CD player in it. We were all jazzed that we had a CD player. We all brought our favorite CDs, and we were listening to CDs on the way there. So unlike the usual, we did not have the radio on, so we knew nothing about what had happened. We'd driven to work. We were working about halfway through the day, right around lunchtime. I had hit a big rock. When I hit the rock, it broke the axle that is in the. There's two little axles that are on each side of the machine that helps turn the wheel, and I broke one of those axles when I hit a big rock. It was enough to jar the whole machine. This massive machine, practically off of its footprint. So we took lunch, and we waited for the mechanic to come out with a new axle so he could put it in. Typically, we would fix our own machine, but that was something we could not fix on the job site because we didn't keep axles with us. And after the breakdown, the mechanic gets there. He says, "Hey, man, did you hear what happened in New York?" "I don't know, what happened?" Somebody flew a plane into a skyscraper or something like that. I mean, nobody knows why. One guy's on the radio saying it was some type of attack, but I don't know. It just, plane hit a building. Now, the way he said it, the way I imagined it, I'm thinking, okay, a small a private plane. I'm not thinking a giant airliner. Never crossed my mind that someone would even do something like that. And so the rest of the day working, I just imagined, oh gosh, some poor schmuck in some private plane ran into a building. Should have looked where he was going. Kind of thing. But on the way home, we decided because we stopped at the gas station to get some gas, and we could hear people talking about it. Like, maybe this was bigger than we thought. So we turned off the CD player and turned on the radio. We started listening to the news on the radio. And as we were driving home that night, it became more and more apparent that it was more than just some private plane hitting a building. In fact, language like deliberate and act of war was being used by the people on the radio. So we listened to the radio, received what information we could. we never still fully understood the severity of the attacks or what had really happened or any of this. Remember, once again, hindsight's 2020, and you can start saying, well, yeah, but Doug, I'm just going by what I was observing at the time. I didn't know any of these different theories. I wasn't thinking about the political implications. I didn't think about inside job. All I knew was I had heard that planes had hit buildings. And when I got home, my front door was open. It was a hot day. My wife had left the door open and left the air in because we didn't have AC at the time. Well, we did have AC. We've refused to use it because we couldn't afford it. That's what it was, to run it all day. And so I walked up the house, and as I stood on my front porch and I peered into the living room, and my eyes caught the television screen, the image was of a plane flying into an already smoking pair of towers. I had never seen the World Trade Center in person. I knew little about them. But when I saw that plane hit the tower, then the burst of flame, my first words out of my mouth was, that was no accident. Now, while I've always been one in tune with politics, and I'd always paid attention to politics, though I wasn't as active then as I am today, I didn't really think about the political implications at the time. All I knew is planes hit towers. We were told it was Islam. We'd already had terrorist attacks before. They had attacked World Trade Center before. 2 + 2 = 4 made sense to me. So when the attacks happened, all I knew was I was angry because our country had been attacked and people were calling it our generation's Pearl Harbor. I had served in the United States Navy when I was younger. I was let out, honorably discharged, but with an administrative medical reason that disallowed me from re-enlisting. I served on board a guided missile destroyer, USS Chandler, DDG 996, and a tank landing ship, USS Peoria, LST 1183. And so I decided, because I was angry because somebody decided to attack our country, that I wanted to get back in. I wanted to return to military service. I wanted to give whoever deserved what they had coming, I wanted to be a part of it. They would not let me back in. I was not only too old by then, but also because of my medical retirement, essentially, from the military. They even if I was younger, or even if they really needed people, they wouldn't let me in because of my medical background when it came to my service. In 2002, 13 months after it had happened, I visited Ground Zero in New York. I bought a hat with an image of the Twin Towers and the words, never forget. At that point, I was still believing that never forget, and I still believe never forget, but I, at the time, was still kind of in that original frame of mind. There was a small painting with the firemen hoisting the American flag that was on sale nearby. I bought that too, and I believe it's an iconic symbol. I think it's an important symbol. I treat it as important as the Iwo Jima's, image of the Marines hoisting the flag. When I walked up the green fencing surrounding the hole that used to be the World Trade Center's Twin Towers, I didn't know what to expect. I had never been to New York before. I'd never seen the Twin Towers in person. This was my first trip to that part of the country. And I peered through a hole that had been torn in the green fabric, the green construction fabric of construction fencing. And I looked down. What I saw was a large hole with twisted subway tracks at the bottom. And then to my left, a building which had sustained a little bit of damage. It had burn marks and some damage. And a giant mural on that building had been painted with an American flag and the words, never forget. A man standing beside me looked through the hole in the fencing, and as I pulled away from it, and after he spent a few moments looking through the hole, I said to him, I never saw what they looked like. You mean the towers? He asked me. Yeah, the World Trade Center. This is my first trip to New York. I'm from the Los Angeles area, and I never saw what the towers look like. The man lowered his eyes and said, you know, the New York skyline is not the same. They dominated the skyline. It's not the same. So were they tall? I asked, like an idiot. They towered over all the other skyscrapers, he said. Now, when you're outside the city and you look towards the city, you can tell something is missing. The skyline's not the same. And then we were silent for a moment. You know, I kind of looking around, looking down the hole again, and stuff like that. And then he says, well, have you seen the Statue of Liberty? I replied, well, yeah, this morning. She's beautiful. I couldn't go on the island because it's all locked down and stuff. We floated by it on a boat. Couldn't go on the island. Couldn't go into the statue. But I saw her, and she's beautiful. And my eyes kind of filled up a little bit as I recounted the experience of meeting Lady Liberty for the first time. I'm a patriotic guy. I love my country. And that experience of seeing Lady Liberty out in the water like that, it really meant a lot to me. I mean, I couldn't get close enough to touch her or go inside because of the heightened security, but, you know, it was an emotional thing for me because of, you know, I'm such a patriotic guy. Yeah, he said, she's lovely. And I told him, you know, about me being at the Arlington Cemetery the day before, and then, you know, saw the Statue of Liberty that morning, and then we came here. And he turned to face me, and his eyes had welled up. He looked like he was on the verge of tears. And he says, you know, I worked in the towers. I was running late to work that morning. I watched the planes fly into the towers from my car. I was supposed to be in them that morning, the towers. One of the floors I worked on was one of the floors hit. Had I have been on time to work, I would be dead. I haven't been back here since. Today is my first visit to the hole in the ground that was once the Twin Towers since it happened. I lost a lot of friends that day, he said. People were running in all directions. We didn't know what to think. We just knew that what was happening was horrible. And when the second plane flew into the tower, I knew it was no accident. They meant to do this. They meant to kill thousands of people. It only took a couple hours for the towers to fall, he said. Later on, he didn't tell me this, but a woman later on told me that the debris fell from the sky for weeks. For weeks. He continued, I was far enough away so I wasn't in danger, but the white cloud after they fell was horrendous. The smoke and dust covered the entire city, he said. It seemed like there was no escape. The people, all those people in the towers, all those people in the streets near the towers, they were dead. All of them, they were dead. I didn't know what to say. I did look around, though, at that moment and noticed we weren't alone anymore. There was about 20 people that were around us listening to us talk, listening to the man tell about the day the towers fell. And some of them were probably locals, and I'm guessing most of them were tourists. And every last one were crying. They were crying with him, feeling his grief, feeling his pain. And reaching over, I placed my hand on the man's shoulder. And when I did that, to my surprise, he reached over, he pulled me in, man, and he just hugged me and then put his head on my shoulder and wept like a baby. All that anger, all that pain, all that sadness, it all came out all at once. I didn't know what to do other than just throw my arms around him and pull him in. Nobody walked away. Everyone remained around us, each with their head bowed, mourning with him. One person reached over and placed his hand on the weeping man's shoulder, as if to offer a small prayer or encouragement. And we stood near that green fence around the hole that used to be the World Trade Center towers for quite a while, in tearful embrace. And at that moment, something happened that we don't see often in this country. I was no longer a Californian. He was no longer a New Yorker. We were Americans. We were Americans grieving for our fallen. We were united in a way that could not have been achieved in any other way. And afterward, he shook hands and he looked me in the eye and he said, "Never forget." And then another tear rolled down his wet cheeks. Now, once again, hindsight's 2020. I'm telling you what happened that day, my reaction, how it all occurred. We can say all kinds of things about what happened that day, but I'm telling you from my point of view of what I knew at the time. And when he said that, I nodded and said nothing else, and our hands separated, and the man walked away. The crowd slowly dispersed. My wife walked up to me because she had been shopping around the corner. Did I miss something? Yeah, I said, but I couldn't describe it properly if I tried. I actually wrote it down immediately so that I wouldn't forget the details. And it was at that moment that what happened on 9/11 as a Californian became more alive to me. Because, I'm on the West Coast, so that was something that happened far away. But the image of the whole, it was something that was etched in my memory. The tears of the people around me as the man that had lost his skyline wept stayed with me. Now we know basic details of what we knew at the time, what we saw at the time, what occurred. 2 hijacked airline jets struck the Twin Towers during the early morning hours of September 11th. 110 floors of skyscrapers collapsed. Among the missing were 343 firefighters and a grand total just under 4,000. I'm sorry, 3,000. And we saw it as an act of war. We saw it as an attack against the United States. We were angry. We were sorrowful. Then the different theories began to emerge. And being the kind of person I am, I didn't necessarily believe everything I was hearing. I needed evidence. I don't believe all of it still, but I do believe some of it. I believe some of it might be on the right track, but not completely true. There's a variation. Some of it's not true at all. Some of it's very true. Some of it's true for different reasons. Some of it's true for the exact reasons people believe it. It's all over the place. But I don't call it our Pearl Harbor anymore because, see, when Pearl Harbor happened, the Japanese wore a uniform, and they served an empire that sought to rule the world. Their allies in Europe, Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy. This was, if you want to pull the Islamic part of it into the picture, a faceless enemy. Islam wears no uniform. They follow no rules of war. But their allies, as we have come to figure out, were not the Axis powers or some country's, group of soldiers. It was people from our own system. People who hate America, that either hold position in America or outside of America. It was deeper than just an Islamic attack. Islam, in a sense, while I don't doubt that Islam was thrilled to see the great Satan be attacked and the towers fall and Americans die in the name of Islam, and they were dancing in the streets in parts of the Muslim world, the fact is, be honest with you, they were sort of like a pair of scissors. They were a tool. They were simply used to cut that hole into America, but they were just this set of scissors. They really weren't the hand that wielded the weapon in truth. The socialists, the secularists, the humanists, the globalists, the members of the progressive hard left, members of the left anti-American cabal that aren't Democrats or progressive hard left, that might even be Republicans. They were all in on it. And they all want to control the world. I don't know the details of how each of them were in on it, but there's enough evidence there that we know it was a joint operation among those around the world and within the United States structure and apparatus that carried this out. And I remember communism. I served during the Cold War. Communism was the clear enemy. The Soviet Union was not shy about its hatred of American ideals. And, I've have experience of being around the enemy, But this is like no enemy that I knew of. That the terrorist attack, while we can say it was a Muslim terrorist attack, was more than Muslim. Like I said, they were the scissors in a much larger hand, and as an unseen hand. The recognition of the enemy allegedly behind 9/11 attacks hates America is a no-brainer. We know they hate America, but we don't know exactly everybody who was involved, but we know they hate America. Some people think they know everybody who was involved. I don't think we really will ever know for sure. But we know that the 19 individuals involved in completing this package that came to the towers and the Pentagon and was knocked out of the sky over a field in Pennsylvania, once again, they were pawns. They were tools. Once again, Islam's more than happy to participate in something like that. Now, I don't necessarily want to say, though, that 9/11 was an inside job. I don't like using that term because it makes it sound like, well, the entire government was behind it. I don't believe that the entire government was behind it. I believe that there were segments of the American government that were either aware or orchestrating or helping or all of the above. I don't believe that every single part of the government was in on it, just like I don't believe that every single of anything is in on anything. It's a segment. It's a part of. And that's my opinion about the conspiracy part of it. Well, but I will say that what happened did pose a lot of questions for me. While I'm not necessarily positive that munitions were stuck into the walls and it was exploded as the planes hit, the logistics doesn't make sense to me. But on the same token, how is it that the World Trade Center's buildings fell straight downward upon their own footprints? Why is there, by some reports, no wreckage at the Pentagon? And in some cases, there are reports that were. Why is there a discrepancy? Some people will say, well, what about Building 7? Well, I know about Building 7. I have a friend that retired from the CIA. He told me about Building 7. Building 7, when it was designed, was built with the munitions in the walls. And that if ever World Trade Center was attacked again, they were to bring it down because it was full of top secret stuff, confidential stuff. So absolutely it came down on purpose, but not necessarily following the same line of thinking as some conspiracy theorists may say. I try to stay away from extremes. I'm not the type person that I'm the type of person that doesn't jump to conclusions. I need to study evidence. I need to see. I need to feel. I need to touch, typically. I need to come to my own point of view based on that evidence. So I'm not one necessarily to hear something and go, well, that sounds good to me. I believe it. No, I don't do that. So if you want to argue with me about it, that's fine. But I came to my own conclusions based on evidence. You have evidence? Throw it my way. But if it's hearsay, I'm not going to consider it evidence. And we do live in an age where if you disagree with one side, it's assumed you must be the inhabitant of the other side, as I explained earlier. I don't want to defund the police, but that doesn't mean that I think they do no wrong. I'm against socialism, but that doesn't mean I support the full form of capitalism that currently exists in the United States, because it's not what it's supposed to be. I support the originalist view of the Constitution, but it does not mean that I'm an insurrectionist against the current U.S. government. I didn't necessarily think that Iraq was an illegal war, but I'm not necessarily a warmonger. I don't necessarily think that they should have been the target. This might have been an excuse to attack them. In fact, it was an excuse. But that doesn't mean I think they should have been attacked or not been attacked. I've got kind of a mixed bag on that. Take out a couple government targets or military targets if they're a threat, and then leave it and then see what happens. Don't put boots on the ground. That's kind of the way I've been. We got the technology. Why do we need to put boots on the ground for anything? And then my second question is, why did we need to attack in the first place? That's their problem. If he's not a direct threat to us, then I really don't care. Have your dictatorship. I hate to say that. Oh, but Doug, they need to be liberated. Why do we have to go around liberating everybody? Can't they take care of their own country? So I have, various feelings about this. So when I say something, don't assume that I'm just way over here or way over there, because it's not necessarily the case. Because in every situation, there are varying degrees in between. I don't want like I said, I don't want the police to fund it. It's a bad move. But I don't think the cops do no wrong. We need to, examine how we train and hire, I guess. And so on and so forth. As for the word insurrection, I don't believe that insurrection is defined as acting in opposition to one's government leaders. I believe it is acting in a way to try to change the system of government, to usurp or dismantle the U.S. Constitution. That's insurrection to me. Just saying. And everybody has their opinion, which brings it back to 9/11. So, I've kind of told you what I feel, and I don't necessarily think there's this big, giant, unseen hand, but I do believe that there was some stuff going on that wasn't kosher. That was coming from our own system even. Our own people. Perhaps from the White House. I don't know. I mean, I have a feeling, though, also that there needed to be plausible deniability. So I don't know if he necessarily, Bush, knew as much as some people think he did. He may have, may not have. I don't know. We don't have the evidence. But I will say this, 9/11, and I apologize I took up more than half the show, but this was important to me to get this out there because I wrote something similar to what I'm talking about. 9/11, I believe, was not I do not believe 9/11 was our Pearl Harbor. I believe it was our war between the states moment. It was a quick turn in our history. It created the opportunity for things like the Patriot Act, for surveillance, for globalism, progressivism, cultural Marxism, and the purveyors of destroying American liberty using tactics like the scamdemic to step up their game and move America towards the final countdown towards the ultimate crossroad where the choice will be very clear. It'll either be liberty or tyranny, freedom or bondage, the original intent of the Constitution or a New World Order based on an age-old scheme of collectivism and authoritarian control in the name of the best of intentions and common good. I believe it was a turning point like the war between the states was. So the question is, are we going to bicker over the details, or are we going to recognize it for what it is and then take actions to stop the downward spiral that it exacerbated? That's my thoughts, gentlemen. Once again, I apologize for taking up the a good half hour, but to me, it's an important subject. That's the reason why when you said, Ron, you want to talk about this, I said, oh yeah, I got a lot to say.
If you said that, I never got it. I never saw any correspondence from you at all.
I didn't say to you, oh yeah, because it was by text. I couldn't do it that way, but
I didn't get it. I didn't get anything from you. The first I knew that we were gonna talk about this was when I read the email that you sent out about what we're going to talk about today on the class.
But I appreciate the fact that everyone was attentive and there were no insertions of opinion or comment. I really wanted to get that out, so thank you. I appreciate that. For me, it's a very important thing.
What I want to know is, for the people watching, how many of you guys got a little bit choked up? It was a great story, Doug. I'd like to share my story of it in about 2 minutes or less, because
he's not like Doug. He's not as long-winded.
Well, I don't know as many words. I've got a very limited vocabulary, so it makes it easier. So at the time, I was working for a Wall Street firm, Payne Weber, and right away we understood that this was a symbolic attack on American capitalism, and that was an attack on us. They evacuated the stock markets immediately. They thought there were going to be more attacks. So here on the West Coast, we have to get up we're in the office at 6:15 in the morning, when you're working for a Wall Street firm. And so we were there with our TVs on when it happened. The office I worked in downtown La Jolla had a lot of veterans, people 30 or 40 years in the business. Some of them having worked on Wall Street. I had just been in the World Trade Center tower having a beer 3 weeks prior when I was back visiting HQ. So a lot of these people lost friends. We had maybe 40 advisors and 50 staff in our office, and we were stunned. It was like it's an amazing experience. And some people went home. Most people went to a bar. The bar wasn't open yet. They called the owner of the bar and said, "Get it open right now." I just watched the stuff on TV. Nobody was even talking. It was like 2 hours of staring at the TV of dead silence. We were just in shock. Eventually, we had to get back to the office because they closed the markets down for the first time ever, and they would remain closed for 2 weeks. And we had to call our clients because they were scared. And you got to say, hey, look, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm guessing a month from now, people are still going to get up in the morning and stop at Starbucks and drive their Ford motor car, and America's not going to get hammered. America's not going to end because of we didn't have the information, but you had to reassure people, and it was emotionally taxing. It was very difficult to do because, we've been used to America being invulnerable and Wall Street being the capitalist machine being unstoppable thing, and we've just been attacked right in our heart. So this one stuck really close to home, and I knew 2 people in the building. I didn't know them well, but they did not make it out. People I had corresponded with on the phone. A lot of the people I worked with lost a lot more people than that. So it was this one stuck really close to home, having just been there. To get to the top of the towers, you had to take 2 different elevators. One of them only went up like 60 floors, and you had to get off and go on another one. And it's so windy up there. I mean, I'm afraid of heights, so I don't want to go anywhere, within 20 feet of the ledge. But to pay for my $10 beer, which was a lot back then, it's a lot now. But yeah, we were. It was my industry in particular, and all the people I knew. We had a rough few weeks. So that was my experience, and of course, Building 7. What you just said about it being pre-wired with explosives, I have read that before. That's one of those ones I would love to find some way to get verified once.
Well, I believe my CIA retired friend, and so for me, the folder is closed on that one. As for the Pentagon and the wreckage, I don't know because I've heard stories on both sides. But I did have 2 people that I was friends with who were in the Pentagon at the time. Pentagon was hit by something. They experienced the shock of whatever hit it. Was it a plane? Was it a missile? Was there nothing? I don't know. All I know is what people who were there told me that were in the Pentagon, and it was hit. Question, but they never confirmed with me what it was because they didn't. They were told it was a plane, but because they were inside the building, they never saw. They were ushered out. They never got that opportunity to observe or investigate the wreckage. So. I don't have enough evidence to determine whether or not there was wreckage, but I do know it was hit.
Yeah, and all the surveillance footage is gone. No, I watched it. And I will bring this to class next week. I will find this little 2-minute video. There was a news clip that was shown live on 9/11 of the Pentagon, where the reporter is saying, "I'm looking around me, and there is no wreckage. There's no fuselage. There's no wings. There's no nothing. There's nothing. And that video was never shown again on any broadcast. But somebody put it up on Twitter or something like that yesterday. I watched it. I've got it saved somewhere on my laptop. I can't find it right now, but I will bring that to class next week so Ron can play it for like the 90-second clip. But if you watch that, it'd be pretty hard to make an argument. And you look at the footage behind this reporter, it's pretty hard to make an argument that was hit by a plane, especially after what we've seen with other plane crashes. Mm-hmm. So, do we have time to talk about the reason Ron wanted to do this and how it influenced our liberties?
Well, yeah, once again, I apologize, but when he wanted to talk about this, these 3 parts of the story meant a lot to me. But Ron, you have been fascinatingly quiet the whole time, soaking in the information. I'm assuming.
Nope,
but the wheels are turning. I'm sure.
No, I just that was not where I wanted to go, but I just shut up and let you guys go.
No complaints on where Doug went with that. It was unexpected, but it was moving. But this is actually Ron's litmus test subject. So I'm going to zip my mouth and let him do whatever he wants the next 15 minutes.
Ron, the last 15 minutes is you've got the reins here.
There are. I will say that 9/11 was my red pill moment back in 2003. Prior to that, I was a good Republican boy, and I believe everything Bush did was right, everything Clinton did was wrong, and it was a very, very sour pill to taste when I came to the conclusion that it wasn't as advertised. Um, I have done exhaustive study on this event on this day. Um, I categorically reject what your friend says. We've had that discussion about Building 7. I don't think that's accurate at all. Um, I do uh, whatever the at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the bottom line about well, I'll just say that I've probably forgotten more about that day than some people will ever know, just because of the stuff that I've researched.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't say that to brag. I'm just saying I'm just very passionate about that day.
Well, I'll support
Um,
that because I've forgotten more about what Ron's told me about that day than most people will ever know. I mean,
yeah,
this is definitely something Ron knows. He's done his homework.
yeah. The um, At the end of the day, the Patriot Act, the government, the complete restructuring of the government, um, with the intelligence agencies essentially taking control, was the ultimate desired goal. Plus, not to mention the fact that when the Soviet Union fell in 1991, we had Western people who went over into Russia and essentially, basically, were carpetbaggers. The modern day carpetbaggers, what they did to the South, we did to Russia in the 1990s. And there was a tremendous amount of bonds that were, let's just say, their ownership was less than reputable. And amazingly, the SEC relaxed bond owner verification in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, and all the people who had those bonds got basically got the money scot free. So, and all of the people that would have been in charge of investigating that, um, there was only two places on top of that, and the missing millions, trillions of dollars that was missing from the Pentagon budget was in the Department of the ONI. There was only two places where those records and the people were kept. One was Building 7, and the other one was the E-ring of the Pentagon that was hit by whatever it was hit by. So, it was not to mention the gold heist from Building 4. Under the vault of Building 4 was completely all the gold was stolen out of there. Um, so, I mean, there's a lot of nefarious things that happened as a result of that event into and into our lives today, and it's extremely important because that is the origin of almost. I mean, there was a lot of bad stuff that we, that has happened in our country, but if you want to, I mean, that's like, have you ever seen you've seen the things about you've seen the graphs from the erection nights, right? Where all of a sudden it goes like this and then like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was 9/11.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's like I said, it was the turning point that the war between the states was, in the sense of jerking us closer to
And it was an
tyranny.
instantaneous move.
Sure.
It was instantaneous. So, um, and because and everybody was on board. I mean, and even I was on board. I mean, I'm ashamed to admit, but I defended
Well,
the
you knew what you
Patriot
knew at
Act.
the time.
Yeah,
Like I
defended
said
the
a few
Patriot Act.
times when I was talking, hindsight's 2020.
So, but everything that we, talking about government overreach, and every time you go to you open up a bank account or you apply for a job or you do anything, you have to fill out a form for the Department of Homeland Security. So essentially, and that is all as a result of 9/11. So basically the federal government got its tentacles into every aspect of our lives, every aspect. And the wars that we fought over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and really more accurately Iraq, all of the technologies that were used on those people are the ones that are being used on us. That was their test bed. From a surveillance state standpoint, that was where they tested out their
just like the
technologies.
scamdemic was for lockdowns, I would think
Right.
you would say then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but we have 10 minutes. Is there any? You're the constitutional guy, and I wanted to kind of focus on specific elements of what the Patriot Act did to eviscerate the Bill of Rights.
Well, the Fourth Amendment, of course, is the one that was eviscerated the most. And that's the one that, for those of you who don't know it off the top of your head, that's where search and seizure warrants, all that comes from. And so it's a surveillance state. Is a surveillance state constitutional? Is it constitutional for them to have electronic surveillance? Well, the Fourth Amendment is clear. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. Period.
Very quick,
Doesn't matter
very
how
quickly.
they did it.
Excuse me, real quick. Where was it? So yes, I have read Rebecca Roth's books.
I have not, but I've heard about them.
She has 4 actually.
Not familiar.
The first one was Methodical Illusion. She was a flight attendant, and she's the one who essentially directed me to look at Stewart Air Force Base as where the location of where they took the planes and swapped them out for the drones. Because that's where the flight paths crossed.
Is that your operating? Is that your thesis that you believe is correct?
What's that?
That the drones hit the building.
Yes,
that's your.
Yeah,
okay.
They were 7.6. Yeah, they were. I mean, Philip Zelikow owned a company that contracted out with. I want to say it was Upalaka. I could be wrong. It was an Air Force base down in Florida, and the whole point of what they were doing was they were refitting 767s to be cargo or aerial refueling aircraft for the military. And that's the only place where you could have put the flight termination system on them. You could have potentially reinforced the wings, hard points on the wings, so that they would have been able to penetrate the steel on the building. You would have been able to put an inordinate amount of fuel on the plane. That, of course, when they crashed in there, they exploded. But and this is just me using my own thinking. There were several areas on several places within the towers that were refurbished, and every single floor that was penetrated had something to do with deep state companies, call it insurance companies, call it military contractors, whatever.
Well, there was the investigation into the There was the investigation in the Pentagon for certain.
Let me finish.
Yeah.
The point that I'm trying to make is I don't have any evidence to support this, but my intuition tells me that they put homing devices in those buildings and those floors. And so that when the drones were doing it, because if you look at Flight 77, right as it came into view, it made a sudden correction and then went right into the South Tower. That was an extremely precise move that really could only have been done automatically.
So not only would a rookie aviator not be capable of it, even a professional aviator.
Very likely not. No, that was it was something that was like it was definitely, well, I believe it was an automatic correction, but I could be wrong on that. But I certainly believe that it was drones. Those were drones. There was nobody. There were no people on the planes that hit the towers. Those people were whisked away, possibly executed, possibly I don't know. But I mean, to think that if they were going to kill 2,000 or 3,000 people in New York City in buildings, then what would an additional couple hundred people mean to them if they were flight crew and passengers?
No, it's I'm glad you got your theory out there. And again, Ron's read more about this than just about anybody I know. And I'm not saying his theories are absolutely plausible, 100%. And I'm not even going to comment which theories are correct, because I have not done the same amount of homework. I did deal with a lot of people over the last couple of days that the theory resurfaced that the buildings weren't hit at all. They were CDMI, whatever you call that, graphics. That doesn't sound plausible to me. Apparently, there was an impact at 9/11.
Can I address that real quick? I'd like to address that.
Go ahead.
Please,
go ahead.
I would like to address that. I view the CGI holograph theory about that as in the same vein as I view flat Earth. It's a relatively new theory that has come out, and most people who are red pilled within the last 3 to 5 years. And so now that is when they discover 9/11 and they start looking at 9/11, to them it's like they don't know when on the timeline of looking at that event when that transpired, and that was like 2015 or 2016 when the holograph theory kind of came out. And I believe that there are many who believe that flat Earth, the propagation of flat Earth, is designed to. I believe the Earth is round, but the propagation.
It's a psyop?
I believe. I believe what it is it is a psyop. Call it a psyop. It is a. It's designed to discredit people and make them sound less less credible. You're gonna discredit people. So the holograph theory, the holograph theory is, they didn't have that technology back then. And when you look at the flight termination systems and you look at the analog videos that was state of the art on that day, you can absolutely see clearly that there were missiles that were fired from the planes that struck the buildings prior to the fuselage coming into contact with the building. There was a separate secondary explosion to the bottom right of where the nose cone would have impacted prior to the nose cone touching the building. And that happened both on the North and the South Tower, both Flight 11 and Flight 77. So,
Lucy Bird asks a legitimate question. Are you sure of what technology they actually had?
Yeah, that's
I'm not. Question. You're right. I'm not exactly sure of what the technology that they had.
I mean, there's a lot of things that they may have that we don't know. I mean, about.
I'll touch on CGI, because those videos have been poured over by every tinfoil hat skeptic in the entire planet for the last 21 years now. Mm-hmm. They would have been able to find an issue with the footage. There's too many angles. I do not think that the CGI. That was my answer to the CGI. But I got a question I need to get out here. And if you believe, like we do, that there's something about the 9/11 official story that is not correct, it leads one to draw some conclusions about certain actors or factions in our government that are not what we consider mainstream, but they paint a very dystopian picture, and those are the same kind of people that may entirely be capable of doing things like plotting a global pandemic or messing with certain democratic processes. But here's the question I want to get out here, and I want both of your opinions on this. The Patriot Act literally was out before September was even over, a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. This is hundreds of pages of government text and volume. Is that even possible if it was not pre-planned?
No, it was already pre-done.
Yeah, no doubt in my mind.
No doubt in my mind. It was already laid out. It was already written. They just needed an event to make it happen. And let me go back and touch on something that you talked about earlier, Doc, when you talked about you don't believe that the government did it, and I'm in absolute agreement there. I don't believe the government as a whole is. I mean, the government as a whole is incapable of balancing a budget, much less pulling off something like this. You don't need the entire government to do this. What you need is you need just a very few key individuals in positions of authority that are choke points of that nobody is ever going to tell them no in a situation when we're under attack. Like people like the president, people like the secretary of defense, people like the vice president, people like the generals. Most people don't know
Well, there
that
might even be bureaucrats and staffers that are inside
very
the
unlikely, very
system that we
unlikely.
don't even know, that we
The
don't even
fewer
know exists.
the fewer the people that you
Sure.
don't you want to have as little people as
Sure,
possible
sure.
to know, because then you have the less ability for leakage. Now, but the
Well, undeniable plausibility when it comes to president. I actually, and this is just my opinion, I believe Bush knew almost zero about it, if not zero, because of two things. Number one, plausible deniability, and number two, the people who want to do this to the country. While I am not necessarily letting Bush off the hook, he's definitely was or is a globalist, like his father was. But on the same token, I also believe that the people that were behind this kind of thing still didn't like him. He wasn't enough in their camp, and so I don't know if he was even fully trusted in that sense.
I respectfully disagree with that.
The other thing is
I'm on Ron's side. I'm on Ron's side on this one.
Some people also believe that he was the mastermind, and I'm like, the same people think
I don't believe that. No.
Yeah, and I was going to say, most of the people that think he was the mastermind also think he's the biggest idiot to walk the earth. So really, the mastermind was the biggest idiot to walk the earth?
I'm going to say something real quick. I'm going to say something real quick about him. A lot of people think that Bush was this goofy looking dude who, he kind of was.
I think it was more brilliant.
No. I have a very close friend of mine who was a SEAL and knew people on his detail, and all of these guys said that the show that he puts on for the crowd, that kind of that goofy, the
folksy Texan,
the goofy, that is a total act. That behind the scenes, that dude is sharp as a tack, and that he absolutely sharp as a tack. And there's a reason that he was the president and not Jeff.
Well, now understand.
Well, hang on.
I was saying, I was not saying I thought he was goofy. I'm saying that
I'm talking about the public.
He was a mastermind. Say he was a big idiot.
I'm talking about the public. I'm saying the public perception of George W. Bush is that he was just some nincompoop goofball who didn't know what he was doing, but nothing can be further from the truth.
Let me concur with Ron on this one. It was 2009 when I left Wall Street and I was working as an independent financial advisor. Charles Schwab is one of the biggest custodians for independent advisors. They do an annual conference for the top 100 advisors in the country. These are very sharp people get invited to this. Two of my friends that I shared an office with went to this conference. George Bush, who had just stopped being president, was the keynote speaker. He sat there gave a 30-minute speech without a teleprompter or speech and had these people glued to their seats and then took their questions and nailed them left and right. Good friend of mine, one of whom Doug actually knows, I think, came back. He goes, everything I'd heard is that Bush was a dunce. The guy's one of the sharpest people I've ever met. He was entertaining. He was a very, very one of the best speakers he'd ever watched. This is a very sharp guy. The most important thing to remember is his dad was the head of the CIA, and the grandfather Prescott. Well, I've done videos on Prescott, and so I don't even. You have to check out my channel to see what I think about Prescott.
My point is this: I think he's a globalist. I think he has always been a globalist, like father, like son. But I think that there are factions in our system that were further left than him and wanting more than just globalism than him. And so I think there was a distrust. That's why I don't think he knew. I think there was a segment of the government that was even worse than him, that we are now seeing in control today.
Okay.
Well, I think
he may be an ally of, but he's not a part of.
How do you explain his reaction? How do you explain his reaction? He was reading a book to kids. Somebody comes and whispers in his ear that something happened at 9/11, and what did he do? Smile and kept reading a book. that did not seem like the normal reaction for somebody who didn't know. If
Well,
somebody tells you your country just got attacked, you're going to close
out
the
of
book.
there.
You're going to close the book, say, bye, kids, got to go. In fact,
Right.
the Secret Service would have whisked him out of
The
there.
argument is he didn't want to create alarm. He wanted to wrap up what he was doing and then tend to it. That was the argument, and I tend to believe that might be along the line.
The Secret Service would have whisked him out of that room in 2 seconds flat the second they had a problem.
That's correct. When the country's under attack, you don't continue reading a book to kids.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the smoking guns.
Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Anyways,
but yeah.
Once again, I'm not necessarily letting him off the hook. I don't believe that he was this wonderful conservative president. But I think that he was not a part of the cabal as much as he thought he was. Is my point. I don't think he was trusted by the cabal. I do believe he's a globalist. I think he's a part of the overall cabal. But that particular segment of the American cabal that I think was behind it, I think that when we talk about the cabal, the left, the whatever we want to call it, it's not one big giant unseen hand. There are multiple smaller cabals within there that battle among each other. That's my point, and I don't think he was trusted by the people that were.
I think you're being way too generous in your assumptions.
Okay.
I think you're being way too generous in your assumptions, and you have to look and you have to realize that everything that Obama did, the foundation for everything that Obama did, the foundation that was laid under the Bush administration.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Go to my channel.
They don't have to be in the exact same section.
I addressed this a couple times when Doug wasn't in town. I got to lead the class and do my own little topics. On my channel, there's 2 videos. One called American Fascists. A lot of it talks about Prescott Bush. The next one, another video to find, is called The Bush-Clinton Crime Families. And I talk about the Iran-Contra crisis. It tied into the savings and loan. This is the entire lead up to 9/11. The next presentation I do will be the next saga of that, where it's going. George Webb has done a ton of work on this stuff. He's got a book that's out recently. The interesting name that's coming out now from George Webb is that one of the people who helped cover up Iran-Contra was a gentleman by the name of Bill Barr. So I'll leave you there. There's
Lucy
more to
Bird
this.
said, well, I need to do more research. I've actually done a ton of research. I've just come to different conclusions.
Which is fine, which is more than fair, and I look forward to the opportunity to perhaps nudge you closer to where I'm going with it, but I agree with Doug about the multiple factions. I've always said this is like Game of Thrones. It goes back to the Roman times.
Absolutely.
It's different families that rise, they fall. These ancient families they were in Rome with all their landowners,
and that's one of the reasons why. One of the many reasons why, in the end, whenever evil and tyranny rises up, they wind up eating their own, is because you do have these multiple factions, these multiple positions, and who wants to take control, and they wind up attacking each other eventually once they get their common enemies out of the way.
Yeah, and this is the mercantilist system that our founding fathers left England to get away from.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the Constitution. This is what the Constitution was supposed to protect us from.
Right. Well, and like I tell my classes, it only took 2 years for a lot of those mechanisms to be screwed up.
Are we going to talk about Alexander Hamilton today?
No, it's 10 after 4.
Yeah, I got to get. If I want to have time to eat before the class starts, I need to get like a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I got to run. It takes me
a little over an hour to get there, and the class doesn't start till 6. I do like to get there early enough that I can grab something, because usually I don't get a chance to eat until I get up there. My morning is so busy, I don't get a chance to eat all day unless I go to a lunch or something.
Martha, you can go to Rumble and look up what is your Rumble channel?
War Hamster and War_Hamster, but I just posted a link.
Sue Flocky, Hamilton's Curse. Absolutely. Hamilton's Curse by Thomas J. Del Lorenzo. That's the only book I recommend more than my own.
Wait a minute. Don't hang up on these guys. I'm going to grab the other book that is just as good about Hamilton. Hang on.
Hamilton's Curse.
Ron and I are both reading this one. And
Yeah, I need to get that one. I have, like I said, I haven't.
oh, I'll be finished in about 2 days. You can borrow mine if you want to save the $10. But Brian McClanahan is a wonderful author. In fact, I'll just do a book trade with you because I haven't read Hamilton's Curse. I've only read like the Cliff Notes version.
Well, mine has like a tremendous amount of underlinings, highlightings, notes in the columns. So if you can put up with all of that.
Oh, I can put up with that. I think your notes might be more entertaining than the book. I actually, when I'm reading books, I got my laptop right next to me, and I actually take notes. I've got a Word document that's now about 600 pages long, where I keep a lot of my notes just for quick reference. So when my memory fails me, all I got to do is look up Hamilton, and it takes me to a couple comments that I read or quotes. So that's like my little cheat sheet.
Well, gentlemen, I'm just going to go ahead and
because I got to get going. I want to say to the audience, thank you for participating. For those of you that are watching this later on, hope this was enlightening for you. Understand that when it comes to all of us having differences of opinions on certain things, it doesn't make us any less of allies. Because in the end, it all comes down to getting back to the original intent of the Constitution. Regardless of who the actors are and how they're playing the game, it all comes back to we've got to get back to that original intent, regardless of all these other opinions floating around. And if we can agree on that, then we're heading in the right direction.
Well, this was a different show. I think it might have been the most fun one we've done. It sounds like our audience enjoyed it very much. So maybe we ought to go off script more often. This was a good idea, Ron.
Well, Joy put in all caps, loved this discussion. And I will say this, I appreciate the fact that you all were patient with me that first half hour or so when I recounted my feelings and memories and all of that. So thank you for that opportunity.
Excellent.
Well, I got goosebumps, Doug.
Well, I appreciate that. All right. Well, and reminder for those of you who want to be at my Saturday event, buy your tickets by the end of the night tonight. Go to douglasvgibbs.com or politicalpistachio.com for the Eventbrite link. All right. I'm out of here.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We will see you next week when we finish up the 20th Amendment and 22nd, maybe?
Yeah, we'll get into the 20th or complete it. Yeah. I can't remember if we started or
yeah,
not.
Well, all we had left to do was the 20th because the 21st would nullify the...
Yeah. The 20th was in that particular lesson plan was the final part of that. And then the other ones, we might be able to do the rest of the Constitution next week.
Okay. Oh, cool.
Maybe.
No.
We'll see.
You're optimistic. Ron and I will distract you in some way, shape, or form. We'll find a rabbit trail.
Well,
sure
we'll see. But in any event, everybody, thanks for joining us today and being tolerant, and we will look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Amen. United we stand, combined we kick butt. God bless America, my friends. God bless you.